Welcome back to Fast Market. I'm your host, Tom White, along with my co-host, Mr. Kevin Hinks. And we're going to welcome in our next guest, and that's going to be Megan Brantley. She is the Vice President of Research at LikeFolio.com. Hey, welcome back to the show, Megan.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, so we're talking retailers. It's all about retail this week. And we've seen consumer demand really start to pick up over the last several months, and you've seen it reflected in a lot of the stocks. But what is your data at LikeFolio showing us here ahead of Kohl's earnings?
Yeah, so I was really excited to come on and talk with you guys today because I finally have some positive things to say about Kohl's, Kevin. You will be so excited. And so what we looked at, we wanted to look at a lot of these different retailers, and we like to look at how they're performing, especially against each other. And we like to look at that momentum and demand, and also that momentum and sentiment to see, okay, which consumer or which retailers are starting to gain steam into this holiday season, which may be lagging, and then how does overall happiness shake out? And what we see when we look at Kohl's is they're actually in the right side of this scatter plot that we like to look at. You can see it over here. We see those demand mentions almost up about 10% on a quarter-over-quarter basis. We also see Macy's performing well. I know that's another one of interest that we see really start to get that momentum. And so I think that this is a positive sign. When we look at tweets, we see people starting to talk about, going to Kohl's to buy these holiday shopping or these Christmas gifts. We see the same thing for Macy's. And a lot with Kohl's too is that we're starting to see an improvement in sentiment. Sentiment is up about 6 points year over year. So whenever you start to see that demand build and you start to see that sentiment improve, typically that's a pretty positive sign for us.
All right, Megan, you have to help us break down this data because I'm looking at your purchase intent versus sentiment, and frankly, it looks like a Jackson Pollock painting here going on. Colors and things going all over the place, and there's some names. So it looks like, surprisingly, Kohl's and Macy's and Gap, a bunch of names that were left for dead a few quarters ago, seem to be coming back to life here. And the ones that seem to be struggling seems to be some of the real popular names before, like Lululemon and American Eagle and names like that. So what are we seeing in terms of this movement? I've been seeing enough of these to know up and to the right is good. So
yes.
Is Macy's, Kohl's, and Gap coming back to life here?
Yeah, I think that that's what this shows because we're looking at this on a quarter-over-quarter basis. So these are companies that we think have room to improve, right? You would expect to see some improvement out of these names specifically. And so I think it's a good sign that Kohl's and Macy's are starting to gain that momentum into the holiday season. That's what we want to see. I think maybe the bar was set a bit higher for names like a Lulu and an American Eagle. You can also see that reflected in happiness. Whenever you consider the vertical axis, the higher you are on a chart, that means that the happier your consumers are. And so I think that is still relevant for names like Lululemon and for names like American Eagle, that they're still keeping their consumers happy, but at least from a near-term demand just coming back to life, that Kohl's and Macy's are showing positive signs that yes, this is in fact happening.
Yeah, and Megan, just noticing that it's the reopen. People have demand for clothes because all they bought was basically sweats for about a year. So you've got to figure that maybe a bounce back is warranted here. Inventories are getting controlled by the supply constraints. But then you mentioned delivery times. Now, will they run out of inventory because demand is still so high, and it seems like your consumer intent is pretty elevated for a lot of these names? Will they run into problems and maybe some of that data turn negative if people can't get their stuff by Christmas?
Yeah, I think that this fear of not being able to get the things that you order on time, that's a rising fear for consumers. They want to be able to feel confident that the things that they're ordering they're going to get it whenever they expect to get it. And so we see now that a lot of these stores that have these physical presences, that have these same day delivery options or just same day fulfillment options that you can buy it online and pick it up in store, consumers are increasingly seeking these options because they feel more confident. They don't have to worry about a delivery delay or something of that nature. So I think in this instance, this is where Kohl's and Macy's and a lot of these retailers have a leg up because they do have these options for consumers. If they don't want to worry about ordering something and, worry about it coming in from potentially overseas or something of that nature, then they can just buy it online. They see what is available for pickup in stores, and they don't have to worry about that. They can just go and get the product that day.
And I noticed that Kohl's, while positive, on the one axis, it's just barely above zero, and it seems lower than some of the other names within this retail space, Megan. Is that a concern for them going into earnings? Because the stock has run up about 40% so far this year.
Yeah, I think that they had a really nice earnings, or better than expected earnings, last quarter. And so I think that it's good that they're continuing to build on this momentum. For us, from a happiness perspective, even though they look low on that chart, that's actually a 6-point improvement from where they were last year. So they're making strides. I think another positive thing that they may have some notes to hit on is we're finally starting to see traction with the Kohl's and Sephora partnership. I know that we like to compare them with Target and Ulta, and that Target Ulta partnership is still performing from just a growth and total volume perspective better comparatively. However, these Sephora and Kohl's mentions alongside each other, those are up about 71% quarter over quarter. So that's a pretty strong traction as these stores and this presence starts to open up. That partnership may actually help to drive some interest for Kohl's, but they definitely still have more room to improve when it comes to the overall in-store experience, especially versus other retailers.
Delivery delays coming this holiday shopping season for a lot of these names, I'm guessing. But your overall score for this going into earnings from Kohl's is what again, Megan?
So we're actually leaning bullish on this report. We think that they're going to have a nice report to bring to the table. Whenever we look at that on a negative 100 to positive 100 for Kohl's, we're at about a 27. Just to give comparison, for Macy's, we're at 40. So if that helps you give scale for, and also consider that scatter plot, how they were positioned, we're a little more bullish for Macy's than we were for Kohl's, but our data still is shaping up very positively ahead of this holiday season.
Awesome stuff, as usual, Megan, here on the data ahead of a lot of these retailers. We'll just see if they have enough product to actually sell this holiday shopping season. All right. Thanks, Megan. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
All right. That's Megan Brantley, the Vice President of Research at LikeFolio.com.